Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special Board of Commissioners meeting for Thursday, September 4th, 2014. Tonight we have one item on the agenda, and that is a discussion and perhaps introduction of the of new ward boundaries that as required by our charter. Before we start our discussion, I'd like to see if there's anyone in the audience that would like to participate publicly before we have our discussion. Come on up. Hi, Roberta.
Good evening. I'm Roberta Winters, President of the League of Women Voters of Radnor Township, for whom I am speaking. We would like to begin by applauding the Board of Commissioners for several reasons. First, you chose to undertake redistricting, a challenge that is fraught with complexities. Second, you had the insight to begin with an outside objective plan, looking solely at the instructions for municipalities supplied by the Bureau of Elections for Delaware County as provided by the Pennsylvania Department of State. Third, you have been diligent in providing materials to the public on the Township website showing the rules, maps of current and proposed wards, legal descriptions, population variations, and in some cases, overlays with state house districts. Finally, you're here this evening for a special meeting on redistricting to promote civic participation in this area and provide public input in decision-making. All of these points speak, in part, to a process consistent with League beliefs that call for citizen participation, visibility, transparency, and accountability. Based on a review of online materials, the League is asking for further clarification on several points. First, were there proposed plans other than 4 and 5C that were considered? If so, can they be posted as a basis for future public consideration and comment? Second, should the members of the Radnor Redistricting Committee, their meeting dates, and their minutes be listed along with their recommendations on the website? Next, are there plans for revising the census tracts that provide the geographic units by which the population is collected for future? And lastly, can the rationale for the recommendations of the Radnor Redistricting Committee be shared with the public? These recommendations include: maintain existing ward precinct to extent practical, include minimal population variation between wards, maintain neighborhoods to extent practical, and distribute the dormitories across several wards. The League believes that we should support a plan that is apportioned on population, neutral, representative, fair, and protective of diversity. These are voting rights issues of significant concern for all citizens. Thank you for your kind consideration.
Thank you. And hopefully those, all of those items will be in our discussion today. And if you feel that we haven't, then at the end of the meeting, feel free to get up and say, well, we never got to this point. Anybody else who'd like to make public comment before we begin? Okay. We did not have an executive session preceding this meeting, so I'm not going to announce that. And we will go ahead and go right into our discussion. As Roberta just mentioned, we had a subcommittee of this board who analyzed the different plans that were recommended. And I'm going to turn it over to one of the members of that subcommittee. The subcommittee was Commissioner Nagel, Commissioner Spingler, and Commissioner Curley. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Nagel to give us a little bit of background of where we started, what the process was up to tonight, and then we'll have our discussion. Commissioner Nagel?
Yeah, on the back table we have a copy of the handout. It was a presentation I had given a month or two ago that was introducing to folks what we had done. We started off, we hired Amanda Holt. Amanda was the person who successfully challenged the redistricting in the state of Pennsylvania and won that in the state Supreme Court. We thought from meeting her at a League of Women Voters function that she would do a fair job, and her direction really was to take the existing map population information and go forward without any regard to neighborhoods, where the commissioners lived, where other folks lived, just produce the map. And she did that. However, that first map, when we looked at it, we ended up with 3 commissioners no longer in their wards. And we also ended up with neighborhoods being broken up, entire precincts basically being moved in some cases. So from there, the committee met with her and we talked through several ideas. She produced a series of options for us to look at. To Roberta's point about publishing those options, I think that would only muddy the waters because they were just ideas we had at the meeting and we asked her to put them together to see what they would look like. So that the ones that we put up, 5C and 4, 5C were 2 of the committee members were in favor of, and 4, the 3rd committee member was in favor of. So that's why those are the 2 that we published. As you mentioned, Roberta, this is really a tremendous balancing act, and you have goals that are almost mutually exclusive. The biggest problem we had was census blocks. The way things are sliced and diced with census blocks, sometimes you can't make reasonable determinations. For example, one of the things I was trying to do was make 5-1 a bigger precinct because it was terribly small. And there was a logical way to do that, which was to bring Montrose condos into the 5th Ward. However, the way the census block worked in that specific case, only part of those houses were in one census block. The bulk of the houses are in the same census block as the apartment house. What's the name of that apartment house, John? Rosemont Plaza, and also the Radnor House condos. So to try to accomplish the goal for the 5th Ward, I would have had to go into Garrett Hill. And I did not want to do that personally because I thought that was against the goal of breaking up neighborhoods. Likewise, one of the options she had, the 5th Ward, I'm using the 5th Ward as an example because it's my ward. The end of the 5th Ward is along the whole bottom stretch of the township. And at the west end, the one option that Amanda proposed, I would have crossed Bryn Mawr Avenue and picked up more properties there, but it ended up with breaking up a neighborhood there. So we figured, and we were just kept playing with these kinds of things. Where can we move people around to try to obtain that major goal that the charter suggests or requires is the populations being as equal as possible. And note, that's population, it's not registered voters. The same thing, we looked at the fact that you have the dormitories. The only time we see the college students voting normally is presidential elections. However, if there was a concerted effort, the colleges could actually move things in an election period significantly. We have seen it in the past. There was a case, I think it was 15 or 20 years ago, where a couple guys got on the school board and their role, they went out to the colleges and they got the students to vote for them. And it was enough to get them on the school board. So we had an over-concentration of dormitories in one or another ward. So we also worked to try to assure that didn't happen again, that they were evenly distributed. So that was the process. Went back and forth, argued amongst ourselves, and then sent Amanda off to try to resolve the comments we had given her, and ended up with 5C was an option that Bill and I felt was fair. There's always going to be some losers and some winners, and to us that was the best choice. Don was a proponent of option 4, and I'm sure he'll speak to that later on. But anyway, what's in front of you tonight's the output of that. Also, we have the consideration of the State House districts, because in the past we have had cases where State House, a ward may have had more than one State House district, and it creates some extra burdens in that you need multiple voting machines, and the confusion when someone comes in the front door and make sure they go to the right machine. So we work very hard not to have that happen. I think we only have one case, right, Bill, where that may happen. So that's the way it goes. Now, the way the process works is ultimately we will pass an ordinance, and then that information will go to the courts, and then the courts will ask the Bureau of Elections to weigh in, because the Bureau of Elections will be looking at voters rather than population. And there's a state law about how many voters you can have in a district, so that comes down to precincts. And then once it's all worked out, the court will issue the new zoning maps. Zoning ward maps.
Yeah.
Bill?
Thanks. Ed?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the proposed 5C, I think, is an excellent option. The 5th ward had to expand a little bit, and it went into the 4th ward, it went to the 7th ward a little bit. The 7th ward was fine, it had to expand a little bit, it went into the 3rd ward. The 4th ward, since we're losing voters and had to expand, they went deeply into the 3rd ward. The 2nd ward remains the same, except it lost the Villanova campus on the other side of South Spring Mill Road to the 3rd ward, but it picked up Eastern University from the first ward, and I think that's the one where you have to have a separate voting district, because there's nothing we could do about those legislative lines. The 1st ward basically stays the same. It loses Eastern, but it picks up a few census blocks on the other side of Lancaster Pike, this side of Conestoga Road. And then the 3rd ward basically becomes a South Wayne district. It's concentrated in the South Wayne area. It runs all the way down to Villanova and picks up the Villanova campus. And the 6th ward is West Wayne and the back end of the township, which Ravenscliff, Round Hill, Invery, and it's a condensed area. So I'd be happy to hear people's thoughts and all, but I think this is a balanced approach.
Do you want to go, Don, or?
Well, obviously, I don't think it's balanced for a couple of reasons. I'm going to read them off my phone, if you don't mind, just as a list.
Can we put this up on the screen
Yeah,
so
I
people?
know. And actually, what I would like to see, which I don't know if we have now, is I'd like to see the other options, because I'm going to say why I think the other options are better. And then I'd like to see the comparison to existing, because I'm going to say why what we're proposing is so dramatic, and that the dramatic nature of the change can be seen when we see it side by side with the existing. So the first problem that I identify is the dramatic effect it has on the 6th ward. I recognize that we're not here to provide our ward-specific issues, and that I have other issues. But if you look at proposed to existing, what you see is a dramatic effect on the 6th ward. Half of the 6th ward goes away. 25% of the voters would become 1st ward voters, and around 25% would become 3rd ward voters. And then half of the 6th ward would become what is now the 3rd and the 4th ward. So this is not consistent with that mandate to be as minimal as possible, and it certainly is not consistent with that mandate to maintain neighborhoods. My second concern is the downtown. Currently, we have the downtown represented by 3 commissioners. Under this, we'll have it represented by 2. I think that's a problem in and of itself. An example would be John Fisher, when you had some concerns about outdoor dining. I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think you felt a little bit like it was 6 people imposing something on one particular ward. And now we all came to an agreement on that, but that's an example of when it's prudent to have this downtown area that is township-wide. It's prudent, in my opinion, to have representation for that downtown extend to as many commissioners as practical. And in my opinion, it would be better to have 3 represent that area than 2. Natural groups and boundaries, again, that's a tough one. Every one of the proposals seem to violate natural groups and boundaries, but here we've got, I mean, to me, we're very dramatically changing the 6th ward. A natural boundary is Route 30, those neighborhoods. South Wayne is a natural boundary, but that's being divided among 3 different entities. So I think we're not satisfying that concern to maintain natural boundaries. I also think that this is facilitated. I mean, Bill and John like this much more than me, and I think it satisfies their concerns, but it comes at a cost to others. I think there's a lot of people in a lot of wards, particularly the 6th ward, that are going to find this objectionable. And while I don't believe that gerrymandering is a term we use for politically mandering the lines or changing the lines politically, I don't know that we have political reasons to do this, but we are changing the lines to facilitate the interests of a few, and we have to recognize that some are going to be disadvantaged by that. And then lastly, I wouldn't present all these problems and just walk away. I think this one is problematic, and I think other options are better. So part of why I'm making the case for something different is I believe that option 4 is better because it satisfies the thing, in my opinion, it satisfies the things that we must do better than this particular option. Before I turn it over to someone else, I do want to recognize that I know that there are limitations with option 4, but I think those are details. And the problems that I see in option 5C are not details. So that's why I'm not supportive of option 5C at this point. Thank you.
So I guess the answer is we can't see this on the screen? I have my computer. Can I want to plug in my computer?
Jim, are you be able to pull this up?
I also have one sort of follow-up question while we're waiting. This question is for Peter. Peter, are we using the right word when we say committee? Was this a committee or was this a working group? And the reason I ask is that I'm not aware that we kept any minutes, and I'm really not aware that we even voted. We came to a consensus, and John's description of the process is accurate in my opinion, but I wonder if there are some people, when we say subcommittee, if that means we have to have minutes and agendas. I don't know that we published any agendas, or it was more of a working group in which we came to a consensus, and then the consensus was brought to the board.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not incredibly familiar with the setup of that particular group of 3 commissioners, so I don't want to opine whether or not minutes were required or advertising or that sort of thing. I do believe as long as you describe it appropriately and describe what you did, the name attached to it is unimportant. So just as long as you make it clear that you didn't publish agendas, you didn't take minutes.
So we can make
that's
that
fine.
clear that we have, we didn't publish any agendas, we didn't take any minutes. Correct, John, that's accurate?
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Right, I think it's more accurate to call it a working group. I think you're right. Okay, I will go ahead and make some comments. Before I start, I would have no problem putting all the maps that we saw in the beginning up. I don't think it hurts at all. They're not that helpful, but if people are curious, it's you can. I think we should go ahead and put it up. That's my opinion. So that working group came down to option 4 and option 5C being the most realistic and probable to move forward. So those are the ones that we really spent the most time looking at. Option 4 to me had a very, a deal killer drawback, and that is that the goal of keeping our dormitories sort of spread out as much as we could, to me, is very important. It's having a huge number of students in a ward really skews off presidential elections. So what happens is a very small amount of people come out because the student voters are sort of imaginary when it's not a presidential election. So the way it was set up currently, it was very skewed. Currently, it's very skewed with the dorms. The second ward has more than 2,000 students. And option 4 doesn't help at all. Under option 4, Ward 2 still has 2,200 dorm occupants, and Ward 1 has both Cabrini and Eastern dorms, and they have over 2,000 students. And Ward 3 has no students. And Ward 7 has about 1,300. That's constant through all the plans, Ward 7. My ward has about 500 because I just have South dorms. But having the third ward, which is contiguous to these universities, or close to them anyway, not have any of these dorm students, and then having them all loaded in the other wards is not optimal. So when I figured that out on 4, I just really don't want to, I can't support that because I think it really does have a negative effect on our smaller elections. So that brought me to C, and in C, the students are pretty spread out. The first ward has about 1,200, second ward has about 1,600, third ward has about 1,500, my ward again has 500, and seventh has 1,300. Wards 5 and 6 aren't really near those institutions, so it would be very hard to get students in their wards. So that was sort of...
the student rentals.
Pardon me?
I said, well, I just have the student rentals.
Rentals, but not the dorms. So that was a big factor in the way that I analyzed these things. Speaking to the dramatic change, there are some dramatic changes here. There are some really dramatic changes in my ward as well. I lose my 2 most dense neighborhoods. And then I gain some of the very spread out neighborhoods, sort of like the 6th ward had gained some really spread out neighborhoods. And it really does change the dynamic of the 4th ward quite, it does. But, to me, that's not as big a factor. It's still the same geographic area, and it still makes sense on a map, the new configuration, so that doesn't bother me as much. Regarding the downtown, having more commissioners, in my opinion, all 7 of us represent our business districts. All 7 of us represent the Garrett Hill Business District. I mean, I probably have more interfacing with the Wayne Business Association than I do with most of my neighborhoods, because that's a big part of our town. So I don't really think that the Wayne business area or our downtown needs more, technically having commissioners that represent them. All 7 of us have that responsibility because that is a driving factor in our economy. And then the gerrymandering comment, we have bent over backwards to not gerrymander. And I don't think you can look at this map, the 5C, and think that there was some sort of ulterior motive. I mean, it's drawn fairly. It achieves many of the goals, not all of them, and it's not perfect. There is no perfect map. But, it does have changes that some people aren't going to like. But we're never going to get a map that has no changes, that has everybody happy and perfect, because change is necessary here. So those are my comments, and I'm really anxious to hear people who have spent some time looking at these maps, their reactions, because of course there may be things that we haven't really thought about. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment?
I will. Well, first of all,
Your mic.
thank you. Thanks to the subcommittee, whatever we want to call it, working committee. It's a lot of work to do this. If this was easy, it would have been finished years ago. Yeah, I mean, I think I share in all the comments I've heard. So I think maybe there's some work to be done here. Don makes a really good point. When you think about either the business district or a university, like a large institution like Villanova University, you absolutely don't want one commissioner to either have votes in opposition or only one commissioner deciding what's best there. So in my thoughts, the Wayne Business Overlay District area, the downtown of Wayne, would be better served if there were more than one commissioner or 2 commissioners, best to keep it at 3 or more. I agree that we do try to be sympathetic in our votes, but honestly, that's not always the way it goes. So I can name many examples where it wasn't that way, some more recent ones, where things were imposed on my residents that were not my opinion, but were certainly imposed by the other commissioners. So we have to think about that. We all mean well, but in the end, what happens? So I want to put that out there. So anyway, to the, if I went over just the numbers, you guys did a really good job at normalizing the population between the wards, because if I look at the original population variation, we were as high as 17% for the second ward from the mean. So the first and second wards both were very top-heavy. And now if you look at it, and I don't know what numbers you're showing on here, but I'm comparing the difference between the population mean for all the wards, for each ward, and then what the actual population was. So, you know, first and second ward, 601 over, 755 over. These are huge differences. They have to be made up. If you look at the new numbers, we're down around 1 to 3%. The second ward still is top-heavy, 3%. And while that's much better than what it was, I think it still needs to be normalized. I think it's still off. Conversely, the seventh ward is under 3%. I don't think that's right either. I think we need to try to get that closer to 1 or 2%. If we can get everything to within 1 or 2%, we've done a good job. The other thing I think we have to be conscious of is the change in voting places. So you have, Commissioner Nagel had recommended, as an example, Montrose Avenue being shifted over to the 5th Ward. Well, right now, the residents of Montrose can walk literally 2 blocks and get to the voting place. I actually forget where they vote now in the 5th Ward.
American College.
American College is much further down the road to get to. They'd have to drive. They'd have to, and right now they walk. So hundreds of people can walk from that neighborhood over to the Rosemont Plaza. So I think if we try to tighten this up a little bit, restore some normalcy to what's already there, the 7th Ward would become a little bit more like what it was and would pick up some of Villanova, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But, you know, to Don's point, I think it's important that we try to balance all this. But Don, I think you have to agree that in the original numbers, 1st and 2nd Ward were way top-heavy. And then the 3rd and 4th Wards were under. The 5th, 6th, and 7th Wards were all under as well from the mean. So redistributing all these voters, population, sorry, not voters, but population is important. And it's not going to look pretty, maybe, but maybe we can be more conscious of the voting places where they currently are and making those boundaries make sense so those folks can walk to the voting places whenever possible. The only thing I'd ask for is that we revise, if we stuck with option 5C, I would just ask that we put Montrose Avenue back into the 7th Ward as it is currently. I don't have any other changes that I care so much about, but I know those voters really do appreciate. Yeah, I just want to make sure that Montrose Avenue, the condos on Montrose Avenue that were moved into the 5th Ward go back to the 7th Ward. We're talking, it's a net change of 42, but what it will do is it will actually bring the 5th and 7th Wards to about the same percentage in terms of normalization. So it would actually balance things much better.
So you already ran those numbers?
I ran the numbers, and it's basically taking 42 out of the 5th Ward and putting those 42 back in the 7th, and we're both under. The 5th Ward would be under 18. I would still be under 75.
Okay.
Still under 75. I don't know where to make up 75. You know, it's not clear to me where that's going to come from.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Well, I just want to mention one thing. John, I want you to understand about the 1st and the 2nd Ward. In the 4th Ward and the 3rd Ward, you need 600 or 800 votes to get elected commissioner. In those wards, you need 400.
It's because of the
Because
students.
the registered voters, we got
Right.
33 and
Right.
3,400. They got 2,200 because of students.
Right.
So their population is generated by students. So what we did equalize that. The 3rd Ward now is in the same boat them, has a lot of students. That's what we did. So you just can't look at population. You have to look at registered voters also.
Well, I don't know if we're allowed to look at registered voters.
No.
you know,
No,
but
we have to get
I
the
think our edict is
no.
to actually balance population.
We have to get the population equal, but by moving all those Villanova students into the 3rd Ward out of the 2nd Ward, that's what
It
equalized
does,
it.
it does help.
Again, I'm not,
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I just want you to understand that.
no, I
concept of
understand, and
students.
I'm not, again, I'm not being critical.
Yeah.
I think you guys did the best you, I mean,
Yeah.
this is a very difficult process. And you've, this is why I didn't volunteer to be on the committee, because there's a lot of detail here that you'd only know, like Bill's probably the only one that knows the detail. So, Bill, I'm not criticizing.
Yeah, that's,
I'm
I mean, if
just
you
pointing out.
look at proposed 5C, the fourth ward went into the third ward, that all used to be the fourth ward. It was never the third ward, it was the fourth ward. And then, when I won by 9 votes to 91, the Republicans reapportioned, and they took South Wayne away from me, and took me all the way on the other side of Sproul Road down to South Hythen. They did that to, change the makeup of my ward. And the fact of the matter is, the third ward now is South Wayne. There's no other ward that's representing South Wayne. South Wayne is a condensed district. The sixth ward is West Wayne, and the back end of the township, South Wayne is just one district.
Okay, so John, would you be comfortable with that shift in 42 votes back into, not votes, but 42 population back into the 7th? And that would set me at, I would be under 75 off the norm, and you would be under 18. But without doing that, you're over 24, and I'm under 117. So I'm really below, really far below. And actually, if you look at the last page of the ordinance document, it shows the 7th ward is being under by 3.11%. We're like the biggest deviation of all the wards. So by bringing the 42 back in, it puts me, I don't have a calculation.
John, I wouldn't have a problem with that. It's just, I'd like to hear what other comments we get tonight.
Okay, thanks.
Just before we move on from your comments, you brought up something I'd like to get an answer to, and this is probably for Peter. If a ward line changes so that the polling place is no longer in the ward, and that's going to happen in the 4th ward if this went forward. The 4th ward now votes at Ithan Elementary 4-1, and that will no longer be in the 4th ward. Can you still keep your voting, can we still use that site? Does the voting place have to be in the ward that it is, that the voters are voting in?
The answer is, being on the county board of elections, the answer is no.
It doesn't,
No, I mean, what you do is you try and find some place in the precinct. If you can't find it, you find the closest place. I mean, not every place has a physical place in a voting district. So the election law is, lets you, deviate from having it, and it's best to have it in the precinct, but you can, put it close by. You can't put it 5 miles, 5 miles away.
That is correct, but that decision is up to the Board of Elections.
Yes.
Board of
It's not
Election
something
does
that
that.
the township would decide. It's the Board of Elections that would decide
okay.
that.
But the Board of Elections, when they look at handicap accessible buildings, when they look at the best place to have it, you can have it outside the precinct and have, like, the 6th Ward 2nd District doesn't vote in the 6th Ward 2nd District, it votes in the 6th Ward 1st Precinct, So the best polling place closest to the thing is what they're looking for.
Okay, thanks. Jim Higgins, are you ready to make a comment?
Yeah. Are we going to see the 4th option?
Richard put 4 up.
I just had it up there.
All right, I'm trying to understand Don Curley's problems with this 5C versus option 4. I do appreciate the fact that some neighborhoods will be migrating out of the 6th ward into the 1st. And that your point is that you're breaking up neighborhoods, and that's not a totally off-the-wall comment. I'm not sure I see, other than the neighborhoods in the immediately south of Route 30, which are Lantoga, Doyle,
Lenore,
Gallagher, Lenore,
not Gallagher.
Gallagher stays.
Yeah, this side of Conestoga Road is
Okay.
Doyle, Lantoga, Lenore, and half of West Wayne Avenue.
Other than those, Don, are you saying that there is a destructive effect in 5C?
Yes,
over-
so some of those neighborhoods around the Lenore area would become part of the 1st ward. There's a tiny sliver that would stay on the eastern side of West Wayne Avenue that would stay in the 6th ward, and then the homes on the other side of that would become part of the 3rd ward. So that's the division that those people are contiguous at this point in thought and, in concerns. They have similar concerns. So when there's an issue in South Wayne, they assemble as a group. And then the second thing is that the dramatic effect, if you look at that map, if you just see the dramatic extension, the 6th ward essentially becomes half the 3rd ward. And it moves all the way down to where the 3rd ward line is now.
Yeah.
That's a lot of land, but not a lot of people.
It's done to balance this thing.
Right.
Well,
It's half the people, though. I mean, half the population of the 6th ward comes out of the 6th ward, regardless of how much land it is.
in any decision, we have to balance costs versus benefits. And Elaine has correctly stated that the imbalance in dormitory concentrations, or the concentration of dormitories in certain wards, is not desirable. But even if we didn't have that gain, it would seem to me that I don't see this conflict between neighborhoods. I mean, if the commissioner for the 1st ward picks up Lenore and Lantoga and Doyle, and I'm not sure why he or she would feel that they were not entitled to an equal voice and equal consideration on any issue that comes before our Board of Commissioners, more so or less so than the constituents he or she already represents in the 1st ward. So I don't see this conflict between and among neighborhoods. I certainly don't see the 2-commissioner problem. I mean, you're saying that we currently have 3 commissioners representing the downtown part of Wayne, and we'll drop down to 2. Well, we could have, you still, to enact legislation affecting the downtown business section, you can't do it with 1 commissioner or 2. You need 4. And so we're a collegial body. We all represent every constituent, every resident, every taxpayer throughout the township, and we all represent every business and industry and studio throughout the township. Just because there's an accident of geography whereby we have to live somewhere doesn't mean we're automatically going to have a parochial interest. And even if we did have a parochial interest, we can't legislate that way because we rely on the participation and the contributions of the other 6. So, and I thank John Fisher for going through the percentages. His probably got more aptitude in mathematics than I ever will have. That's very helpful. But all in all, I do think that the gain we're attaining with 5C, option 5C, with the equalization of the students throughout the several wards where they're now going to be, or if we vote that way, is a positive benefit, and it outweighs any negatives that I've come across to this point. I think I covered everything. You had really just 2 issues, the 3-commissioner issue and the neighborhood issue. And so I think I've addressed those.
Also in 4, Jim, you'll notice that your whole 1st precinct is going to become part of the 6 under option 4. So it's the same thing.
I asked Elaine a moment ago if that were the way she read it.
See all the blue area on the
Well,
other side of Lancaster Pike.
Okay.
It's timed
all
out,
one
Rich.
one.
Okay, I see.
When we looked at this and weighed this, we tried to keep North Wayne together, West Wayne together, and South Wayne together, and that's why we went in the back end, because we did keep neighborhoods together. We kept the North Wayne area together, we kept the West Wayne area together, and we kept added to the South Wayne area to make the South Wayne area one block. That's what we did, so we didn't disrupt neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you.
Rich, would you like to comment?
Yes. First of all, Elaine, would you go through the college students by ward that you read off before, the old and the new?
Old as in now?
Or
Currently.
proposed? Old and the proposed? Existing and proposed?
Well, I haven't done them all. I just looked at the 2nd ward for current. And I came up with about 2,200.
And what was it before, did you say?
That's what it is now. That is now.
That's what it was before.
No, you read off the students by ward.
Right, that's now, and option 4, it doesn't change. Option 5, you lose, you actually take on the Eastern students from 1, but you gain,
You lose all those students.
Yeah, but just, could you just go, you listed by ward, could you just repeat that again for the constituents and for my reference?
the whole thing that I,
The current.
the current right now is, hold on. The current right now is the first ward has about 1,200, this is very rough, about 1,200, and these are just dorm students, it doesn't count students living everywhere else. About 1,200, second ward, oh no, that's C. I'm reading off 5C. Right now, the second ward has 2,200. I didn't calculate 1, but right now, 1 has both Cabrini and Eastern. So that is right there, 1,500 and 500 in Valley Forge.
All right,
So it has about 2,000.
Let's make it simple. The first ward,
Well, hold on, no, Bill.
We'll go to numbers.
But you ran them down
We're
just
gonna
a few
do-
minutes ago with your comments.
I was
I'm just asking you to
comparing
repeat that.
4 to 5. I wasn't really comparing what we have now. 4 to 5, this is it. 4 is, option 4 is in the first ward, 2,000, in the second ward, 2,200, third ward, none, fourth ward, 500-ish, and seventh ward, 1,300. 5 and 6 don't have any
okay.
dorms. And under 5C, it is around, first ward about 1,200, second ward about 1,600, third ward about 1,500, fourth ward about 500, 5 and 6 still don't have any, and then 7 stays around the same, about 1,300. And the big blocks that we're playing with here are the Eastern and Cabrini, and they're like right across the street from each other. So right now, they both go to first. And then the Western dorms at
So
St. Mary's, which would be now, those are the ones we're moving to 3 to even it out, to give 3 some dorms.
So what we're down, the first ward, goes from 1,500 to 1,200. The second ward goes from 2,200 to 1,600. The third ward goes from 0 to 1,500?
Around, yeah.
1,500. Seventh ward has 1,300. The fourth ward has 500. So they lessened the number of students in the first and second ward and added a big block into the third ward.
Right. Just to, and believe me, if we could find a way to give some of those dorms
And because
to
we added that
5 and
1,500, that's
7.
why we had to lose more of the third
5
ward
and
to try
6.
and equalize the students. That was the factor that led to that.
I have to go to the thing here because I wish we had somebody to. All right. So I'll use this microphone down here. So this is option 4 that Don had alluded to here. But first, let's just go through the current because it's kind of really abstract for the people in the audience. So this is what we have today. Try to blow this up a little bit. And as Don talked about, Don has this portion, the sixth ward is right in here, this portion of downtown. This is the third ward area of downtown. And then here's the first ward, represented by Commissioner Higgins. And I guess I disagree with Commissioner Higgins. We are elected on a ward system. We represent our ward. We have to represent our ward, and we vote with our wards in mind often. I can think of a sidewalk and a parking area recently that we voted on in that means. Currently, here's the 7th ward that is Commissioner Fisher's, and then the 5th down at the bottom, and the 4th ward right here in purple, represented by Elaine. So this is what we have today, and this has been in place for how long? For the last, what did you say it was, 20, is it 91, did you say?
Well, we did it in probably 93.
93. So this is close to 20 years. So let's go to the proposed 5C. I guess my first question was, how did we get to 5C? Where's 5A and 5B from the working group? Right? In other words, we went from 4 to
I don't
5C.
remember, did we?
I don't
did we
remember
get a
ever
5A
seeing
and
that.
5B, John, I don't remember.
When we gave her the comments that resulted in 5, she came back with a 5A, a 5B, and a 5C. So that was her trying to input our comments and understand them. So it wasn't like we considered and rejected 5A or considered and rejected 5B. 5C represented what we actually were telling her.
And 5A and 5B looked a lot like 5C.
Oh, yeah.
Except for details.
Yes.
Yeah. That's my recollection also.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing, well, you were part of the working group,
Yeah. But
subcommittee.
the spirit of
Okay.
5A and 5B are just different by details.
Right.
Yes.
The biggest changes Don talked about, here's the biggest piece. The Sixth Ward moving down all the way to, I guess this is Newtown and Darby Paoli right here. And you see the Third Ward is it's crunched up in the middle right here, taking over the dense population in the Wayne area. And in addition, this piece right here of Villanova
Dorms.
comes out of, there's a lot that's in there. There's dorms, there's a lot of buildings. This piece of Villanova goes to the Third Ward as well. So it's a vast change in the configuration of the Third Ward and the Sixth Ward. And also, as Don talked about, the Fourth Ward expands up this far and picks up what will be the new Ardrossan development, I note. In addition to that, this right in here is this little purple, this is the new Villanova expansion right there along Lancaster Avenue. So I guess, John, the new Villanova dorms would be in your
No, they're
No.
in the Third Ward.
Third Ward, so they're along right here. That's what this is. This yellow right here is the Third Ward. This purple. I thought the dorms were around on the turn right there. They're not quite.
No.
The
Or is
railroad
it like
tracks.
split?
Railroad tracks.
Railroad tracks.
This is the railroad track right there.
Right.
So
And
it's in between right in here. I have to look at the plans, but
And by the way, when you're mentioning that and Ardrossan, that just is going to drive us to have to do this again after the next decennial census.
Which is 2020, so we'll be
Yeah.
doing this again,
Well, we're supposed to do it
2021.
every 10 years.
Well, you're
You're
supposed
supposed to
to
do it. We haven't-
evaluate it every 10 years.
we haven't. I guess that's the point.
Yeah, we weren't in compliance with our charter.
Right. So, and several people have asked me, so why are we doing it now? I guess is the question. There's some rush to do it, but
We passed a new charter that mandated that we do this.
That's why.
we
The law requires it anyway. We weren't following the law. Anyone could have went to court and demanded it, but the new ballot question with the new charter says we shall do this, and that's why we're doing it, because the voters just voted that we shall do this now.
Thank you. I would guess that probably we wouldn't get sued for it if we didn't again as well, but for some reason, we seem to be set to do this.
we just don't
The point I was going to bring up specifically was the point that was raised. This area right here is actually a part of Eastern. So let me go back. So Elaine, the second ward under the current regime does have Eastern in the second ward currently. So this is the stream in the second ward. This is Eagle Road, and this is King of Prussia Road right here. And it actually says that on the map. If we zoom in far enough, you'll be able to see that. But this is a dormitory area, and this is Eastern College right here. This is also Eastern, and then across the road is Cabrini.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you need to understand that the census numbers for the purple one, so above the stream, that is 834.
Yes,
So those are all first ward voters right now.
correct.
And they would move to second ward under 5C. to split up, because First Ward has too many dorm students. So to Second Ward, but you would pick up these, and you would lose the ones over on West Campus.
Again, there is a dorm that's right in this area, and there is Second Ward
Well,
Second Ward
Most of
voters.
the Eastern voters are in the First Ward. You're getting them all
The census
now.
numbers for that dorm are not that high, so.
Nonetheless, there are some. There
There
are
are
some.
few.
Now, but here's the point.
Yeah.
This area right here is not in the 166th
Yeah.
State House District.
We noted that's the one area we'll have to have a
This is
separate
the
machine.
one area.
Yeah.
One area.
Yeah.
So I would say, why would we choose that one area to make this change? That is inconsistent, and I think is
Because
is
we're-
not
we're trying to
particularly
equalize-
helpful.
We're trying to equalize the college students. It's the only way we could do it.
Well, this area right here is the one that was removed from the Second Ward,
Yeah.
this area. So you're saying it was 1,013 right here were taken out?
It
1,300.
is, one of the dorms has 1,013, and one of the dorms has 437.
437, and this has 834.
Yeah. So you're going to have less college students. You have 2,200, you're going down to 1,600. You're going to have 400 less.
Nonetheless,
You also have the 797 over in the west, on the other side of Spring Roll.
exactly right, there's dorms.
You have a
there's
lot
dorm
of-
right here,
you have a lot of
797 right
dorms down
there.
there, right.
And there's these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would note that these are not particularly heavy voters.
That's the whole point.
This area, though, the issue here is, this is where we would have a hardship and have to have a separate
Yeah.
machine, and that combined with the other issues that were noted by Commissioner Curley, basically putting the whole of Wayne into the Third Ward, I think is problematic. And I think also that this is a very drastic change relative to what the current ward system is. Although the Second Ward is not particularly
Impacted.
impacted, other than the students. And I do recognize that there is I suppose there's some attempt. I guess I would also ask that Commissioner Springler and/or Nagel, if they would go through the rationale and like how they came to this, that would be helpful too, because I know you said, well, we tried to do this and that, but
No, we explained it, but I'd be happy to explain it to you again.
I don't think you really went into any detail about how you came up with this. But what I do see is that.
Rich,
what I do,
if you were listening, you would have heard it,
Please, let me speak. I disagree with having this whole of South Wayne in the Third Ward. And I think that the point is well taken, that this is too big a change. And also, the representation of the business district is impacted by this. So, and I also point out that our consultant put together an option that we just talked about, option 4. We hired someone and paid them to come up with this. She came up with 4 different alternatives, and the one that we went with was one that was particularly substantially and materially changed from this alternative by 2 members of the board. And now it's presented here as if it's going to be complete and passed. So this is a substantial change and a material change from what we paid the person to do. And I think that we should be much closer to this with tweaks than to something that was designed by 2 commissioners in behind closed doors without any kind of a discussion of how they came up with that.
Well, Rich,
All right, does any other commissioner
Well,
have any
I just
comment?
wanted to bring up one other thing. We keep talking about Wayne having 2 or 3. I'll tell you what I hear in my ward all the time.
Wayne has all the commissioners.
Wayne has all the commissioners.
Yeah, that-
And the people in my
The sixth
ward
ward
feel that their
commissioner-
tax dollars
the
are
sixth
all
ward
going to
commissioner will
Wayne.
always be a Wayne commissioner.
Right.
Well, so
All right.
the issue, though, as one of the issues that I don't think you're, or maybe we just have a difference of opinion. We can all agree on the downtown, but it's the impact on the immediate neighborhoods behind the downtown. And that's the one where, for better or for worse, we have a ward system. So the logic that you're presenting means just have 7 at-large
Yeah,
commissioners.
we don't run
Which we don't
at-large.
have.
But each of those neighborhoods has a commissioner now.
The original,
That used to be the ward.
the original proposal that was given to us wiped out 1-1 and put it in the 6th ward. A drastic change. Took North Wayne and put it into West Wayne. And it also wiped out the 2nd ward. Rich Booker then lived in the 1st ward.
That's
And
true, but we're talking about
Jim,
option
I haven't
4.
much.
What about option 4?
That's what I'm talking about, option 4.
You're talking about option 1.
Well, option 1. Okay, so then we said, okay, we want to keep the 1st ward and North Wayne together. Okay? We want to try and spread out the students. So we added students to the 6th ward, to the 3rd ward. So the only way we could move is this way. When Jim Pierce and I sat down 12, 14, 15 years ago and we're doing a redistricting, this was the same thing. The 6th ward was expanding this way. The fact is that in 1993, when the commissioners reapportioned, they took the South Wayne area out of the 3rd ward and moved me all the way down from Sproul Road to Ithan Avenue and took South Wayne out of the 3rd ward. And as a result, for the last 20-some years, we've had a separate voting machine for the people on Luella Avenue and Pembroke Avenue and Conestoga Road and part of South Wayne. They have to vote. There's one of them they had to vote at a separate machine because, we had a different legislative district. That's the one time we did it. And we tried to eliminate that. We only came up with the one area, and we figured it wouldn't be a big problem because the students don't vote in local elections. There'll be a national election where we'd have a lot of use of that one machine. But the fact of the matter is, now what we have is we have a condensed 1st ward, we have a condensed 2nd ward, we have a 5th ward, 4th ward, 7th ward, 3rd ward, and 6th ward that are all condensed, and it's a great plan.
And I want to make one observation about the Eastern dormitory voters. That is, it's unfortunate that they're going to have a separate machine for the near future. But when the Villanova dorms are developed, that's going to drive up the numbers down there even higher. So I could foresee that in the 2020 census, when the numbers change, and when this board is doing this again in 2021, those voters will be able to go back to the 1st ward. And then some of those new Villanova voters will go to the 2nd ward, some will go to the 3rd, some will go to the 7th. So that problem may be a short-term problem. The extra, state district on the Eastern dormitories. All right. If we are finished with our commissioner comment for now, I'd like to go ahead and invite the public to come and participate in this exciting discussion.
Martin Heldring, 305 Audubon Avenue. I would start quickly by noting that there wasn't a normal time limitation mentioned. Maybe that's because I haven't been here in a while, so I'm taking that as a message that maybe I have more time than I have had in the past.
I have my clock running.
Do you? Okay.
We only have one subject tonight.
No worries, no
I'm
worries.
going to be quicker. I haven't come to, I just kind of became aware of this issue. I haven't really come to a conclusion yet, but I do have several questions and comments with regard to the process. I've spoken to, at one point or another, almost every one of you, and you've complained about the partisanship on this board. And around the country, whenever you talk about redistricting and you then look at the results, it's often quite embarrassing for the districts what's actually done. This is a process, in my mind, particularly after listening to this conversation, that called out for a independent citizen committee to look at the reports from your independent consultant and make recommendations to you. You've used that model with CBFAC, I think hugely successfully. I think everybody would agree with that, and the charter itself. So the fact that 3 commissioners wander off into a room and at this point aren't sure if those discussions should have been public or not public, there's no minutes for them, there's no agendas for them. Whether this is gerrymandering or not, I don't know, but it leaves a very poor impression to someone sitting in here in the public and listening to this for the first time. So that's a comment. We all talked about the financial issues and the money that's spent on various things. And what I understand, what I heard tonight was the independent consultant came up with 4 recommendations, 1 initially and then 3 others. Is 5C from the commissioners or is it from the independent consultant? And if it's not from the independent consultant, why do we bother with the independent consultant in the first place? Nobody want to answer?
Well, because, number one, it's a very difficult task to get all these census tracked. So we turned it over to independent consultant because we didn't want gerrymandering. Just come up with what you think.
Was 5C from the independent
No,
consultant?
but 3 commissioners didn't live in the ward today. If I came up with that
Okay.
original plan, that would have been called gerrymandering because 3 commissioners didn't even live in their ward.
Well, okay, I understand
Well, I
that,
thought
but that was
5C
the main.
from her.
What?
She went back and gave you 5A,
Yeah.
and C.
No, we told her basically, what we were thinking
Yes.
and how it should look.
So
Yeah.
my
Okay.
opinion
Yeah.
is that 5C was not the independent action of the consultant, but was a result of the majority of the desire of the majority of the working group. Essentially, we told the consultant what to do, or the majority told the consultant what to do, she produced it and then sort of sterilized it, meaning she made sure it satisfied the details that.
Well,
it had to
at
satisfy.
some point, any body has to give
Yeah.
guidance to an outside contractor to come up with something that makes sense and takes into account the fact that the representative must live in the district where he or she is representing. And
Very good. I just think that's a misrepresentation of the issue. There were many details associated with 1, 2, 3, and 4, and those could have been addressed. 5C is not addressing those details. 5C is a dramatically different proposal because 2 commissioners wanted a dramatically different proposal. I'm also not arguing against the legality of that. That's for, as far as I know, it's appropriate. But to characterize it as we hired a consultant and the consultant gave us this, in my opinion, is a misrepresentation.
would you
of the process.
stipulate that if, just for this assuming arguendo, that 5C is dramatically different, would you stipulate that option 4 is dramatically different than current
It's,
boundaries and current law?
That's my
The
point, is
fact-
that 4 is not dramatically different, which is why I support it.
When an entire precinct is moved out of the first ward,
Jim,
and when 3
it's
commissioners don't
dramatically less
live
impact.
in the districts that they're
Yes.
purported to represent? That's
And
not
those
dramatic.
details
I know.
can be addressed.
Jim, the fact is, after looking at all this, we said to the consultant, John and I, we want to keep the first ward intact, and we want to get more students. How can we get the students into the 3rd ward? And this is what she came up with. We didn't draw these lines. I didn't tell her to draw a line on Conestoga Road or anything. We said, okay, we want to keep North Wayne and the district intact, okay? And we want to get the students into the 3rd ward somehow to even it out. And on those 2 bases, she came up with this plan. We didn't draw this plan.
Okay, I think that's a good answer, and let's hear from Mr. Heldring.
Okay, so, but in conclusion to that, am I correct that 5C is not from the independent consultant, it is from the commissioners?
No, I
That's
think you
correct.
just heard the
It's from the
description of
independent
it.
I heard it many different
Yeah,
ways.
well,
so
that's
I'm
your
trying to
opinion.
clarify.
You just
Yeah.
heard the answer. Go ahead.
It's from the independent consultant because we said to her, draw a plan that keeps North Wayne, the 1st ward, intact and doesn't have the 6th ward go over, and put the Villanova students in. This is the plan she came up with. She drew this plan based on those 2 issues.
Okay. Just a point of clarification. This is what was attributed to the public. You've referred all this evening to option number 4. That's what's up there. Is this option number 4?
What are you showing us, Martin?
This is was.
Oh.
Yeah,
think
no,
that
there's
is-
It's not
existing.
option 4.
there's
Option
current.
4 was not in the packet that was
So what are we
provided.
looking at?
You're looking at 5C.
No, 5C comes later. 5C is here.
Yeah, 4's there.
There's 3.
4's there.
But this, so I'm just saying it's not labeled, so we don't know. Is that 4? It's labeled there.
It says 5C.
No, Martin, to answer your question, Martin, this was the original option 1. This is the original option 1, And this,
Proposed was 4.
so the one that's in the packet that the public has, this was the original option 1.
One.
It says proposed for some reason.
So the
It didn't make it
public-
clear.
The public doesn't have 4. So do we have agreement?
It's on the website.
Website, okay, but do we have agreement that options 1 through 4, 5, A and B, and C are going to be made public? I get A and B might be so close to C that it's not relevant, but the others, are they going to be made public? Because I think anyone could file a right to
I can't
know.
see a reason why we wouldn't.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fine. We'll put them up tomorrow.
Yeah.
So next question.
And we should
is-
also put up 5A and B for the other
fine.
commissioners because we haven't seen them.
It's fine.
And I would
We'll
also
do that
make the
tomorrow.
point
Let's do that.
that
Okay.
for Mr. Heldering that
Okay, we'll do it
a
tomorrow. No worries.
A partisan majority of the subgroup picked 5C.
Yeah, the partisan majority made the 6th Ward more Republican. That's
Okay.
a fact.
Anyway, let's keep
So,
going
you know,
with
the
Mr.
argument, we
Heldring's
didn't
comments.
look at that. This is
Gentlemen.
why we didn't look at that.
We're going to continue to hear Mr. Heldring's comments right now.
Okay.
This
So-
is not time for us to debate.
I understand yes, that's a good point. I understand, hopefully questions can be answered, but not time for debate. But I understand the importance of if you're going to hire an independent consultant, providing them with criteria, and you did that in what you distributed tonight. But then what I heard is that you rejected the 4 plans based on the fact that 3 commissioners would move. That was not one of your criteria. And right just a moment
I don't
ago,
think
There were
that's
many
accurate
reasons.
also,
That's
Mark.
not
We
accurate.
heard.
rejected them because it didn't distribute to students, and it took the whole first precinct, and put it in the 6 wards. That's why we rejected them.
so Mr. Nagel's, I wrote it down, Mr. Nagel's comment in the beginning when he presented this, that 3 commissioners were moving was not the reason.
He was giving it an example
was
of
one
That was the
example.
one
first
of the
example he
faults.
gave.
Well,
I'm just trying to clarify it. That
okay,
was the
yeah.
first example.
That is not the only
That was-
reason.
it was
And
Was
it
it one of
broke up
them?
neighborhoods. It went
was
against
not one of your
almost every
criteria.
criteria.
What's that?
Whether or not a commissioner moved districts was not one of your criteria. It was Mr. Nagel's first reason for rejecting the
Well,
first 4.
we figured
So
that
I'm
was.
just trying to understand what
We
happened.
figured that was common sense.
Okay, then.
That's common sense.
Common sense would have made it part of the criteria, if that's going to be part of the decision. I understand, as from Mr. Nagel's comments later on, that this process goes to the courts and there's a voter overlay, right? What happens to the voters in this process? Is it legal? Why wasn't, and some people seem to know how this would affect Republican versus democratic demographics in this. That's not in any of the maps. So was that, to what extent, why can't we see how this affects the voters in these maps? Is there a reason?
We don't have that information.
Yeah.
You seem to know. You just mentioned how Republicans were moving around. Gut.
I don't think it's appropriate for us to
Okay,
try
okay.
to establish how it would.
You're trying to do it without that. Is that
No,
it?
I don't think it's appropriate to attempt to determine the voter registration, correct? That would seem outside the mandate of what we
Right,
have.
those aren't the legislative parameters
Okay, fair enough.
for us.
2 more questions and I'll be done. The students were mentioned many times. I mean, I have 3 students. They all file absentee ballots back here. None of them vote wherever they are. So do we have any history of how these Villanova students, Eastern and Cabrini students actually, how many of them vote? Whether it's national or not, I understand maybe in '08,
They
many
do
of them
not
voted.
vote.
Well, they could have affected the 2nd ward election because
Could have, but I'm
it was in a
thinking more what
primary. We had a
happened.
large student turnout to vote for the Obama-Hillary Clinton race.
So 08, I
And we
get
were-
08.
But we were running a special election for commissioner. The commissioner.
I get '08, but a point in time, I'm looking at facts and history, and we're making a
No.
change that hasn't been done in 20-odd years.
The re-
So
no,
we're-
the reason
what's
we're doing
the history?
No, the reason we're doing it is the history is that in 1991 I needed 800 votes to get elected. In 1993 they voted 375 vote majority in the 2nd ward. They don't have as many
Who they-
voters.
You mean the student?
I have 3,400 registered voters. They have 2,200. That's the difference. That
Does
when you have
any-
all those students, they don't register, so you have less.
So it
You have less
skews
registered
the
voters.
voters. It skews the power of the people who are voting because not very many people vote for who
We're
they
not
elect
being
in
elected
those
by the same
wards.
numbers. I have
Okay.
3,400 registered voters. Lane has 3,300.
Okay.
He has 2,200. Jim has 1,800 or 2,000. So we have 1,400 more people that vote for us than vote for them because of the students. We're trying to equalize.
I have about
Okay.
3,000 in the 2nd ward.
What's that?
I have about 3,000 in the 2nd ward.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Anyway,
Okay, well, anyway.
your next
anyway.
question?
Last comment. There are several comments with regard to whether or not you represent all the people in Radnor or your specific wards, and I think one person even said wards don't matter. I was shocked. I mean, if you think wards don't matter, then do the school district thing and just get rid of them, and you all represent everybody, and you run Radnor district-wide at large. Of course,
Mark,
you represent
could I
wards.
contextualize that remark for you?
You're going to, so yes.
Well, no. Here's an example. I have the 5th Ward, but I have to be concerned with the Wayne Business District because a third of our tax base comes out of the Wayne Business District and the office parks. So although I'm representing the 5th, it's in the best interest of the 5th for me to be concerned about that.
Then run at large. Run at large.
We used to have a joke with the 5th Ward Commissioner when Lisa was here. We have on the side, we say, is that in Radnor? Isn't that in Haverford? You know, we used to kid with her sometimes. But we all represent Radnor Township. We get elected by wards.
When I have my problem on South Wayne, did I go, well, Rich wasn't here, did I go to anybody but Don, who was my commissioner?
Most
No.
people come to the president. Well, I'm here to tell you. Most people come to the
I
president.
thought I had a better shot over there.
And guess what? If Don wanted to solve your problem and he needed votes, he would have called us and asked for our help.
Well, yeah, eventually it did come before the whole board, and he had to
Yeah,
present.
that's
and
right.
Yeah, we all came up and spoke. But people naturally go to their commissioner.
Well,
It's
they should.
obvious.
They should.
It's obvious.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to make some comments? Hi, Gayla.
Hello. Gayla McCluskey, Ward 2, actually 2-2. And to answer the question about the students, I've lived here for 22 years. You don't see them at the polls ever, except for the presidential election, the first one where Obama was elected. They were bussed in, there were lines, but every other time, they're just not there.
Hello, Elaine.
Hi. Elaine Scherer, South Ithan Avenue, 4th Ward, 4-2 to be precise. My main concern, and maybe some of it has been corrected, I don't know. At the present time, there are several neighborhoods in my precinct that are divided. Rather oddly. My side, Ithan Avenue, it was a good dividing line for whatever. So that my side is 4-2. The other side of Ithan Avenue is 3rd Ward right now. Then we have the Trianon. You go into Trianon Lane. The near side of Trianon Lane is in the 3rd Ward. The far side of Trianon Lane is in the 4th Ward. I mean, I know it's a census tract and you can't do much about it.
No, it's not the census tract. It's the legislative districts. 4-1 and 4-2 are different legislative districts than 3-2 and the 7th Ward.
Okay.
So those districts are now in the 7th Ward, and they have to vote in the 7th Ward. They're no longer in the 3rd Ward under this plan. They're now in the 7th Ward. So those people who've complained for years that every time they came up to St. Mary's to vote, they complained about traveling all the way up to Wayne. They used to go to Agnes
right.
Irwin, but ever since we reapportioned 93, they had to go up to Wayne. Well, now they go to Rosemont to vote.
Good. Thank you very much, because that, and then also Wooded Lane was another one, where it was again divided in the middle.
That's still divided in the middle between the 3rd and the 4th. That didn't change. The only thing that changed was Trianon and Aldwin Lane and Villanova Road.
And where is Aldwin Lane now?
They're in the 7th Ward.
The 7th?
They're in the 7th Ward.
Who's on first?
They're all in the 7th Ward and voting in Rosemont. They used to be in the 4th Ward, and then in 93, we put them in the 3rd Ward, and now they're going to the 7th
Now,
Ward.
all right, if Aldwin Lane is in the 7th Ward.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Their neighbors on, now, how about Ithan Avenue?
They're in the 7th Ward.
They're in the 7th Ward.
Yeah.
But we're in the 4th Ward, but we still have other people. Oh, no, all that is in 7th now.
It's because of the redistricting. We couldn't put them in the 4th Ward because they have different legislative districts. We would have had a separate voting machine. So we had to put them in the same legislative district, and we did that very well, except for the one
Yeah,
instance in Richmond.
that I understand.
Okay.
Now, are the neighborhoods being kept together? Because because this was my main thing, because I felt it was very hard.
Well, this neighborhood was broken up in 1993. And
I know,
It's still
I
broken
know.
up. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's still, in other words, part of Trianon is in 4th and part is in 7th.
That's right. Because of the legislative districts.
Oh, my God.
The state took the legislative district. They did it first, so we couldn't move that back into the 4th Ward. We'd love to do that, but we couldn't do it.
We couldn't do it.
No.
Well, as I say, I was hoping, my main thing was to try to keep neighborhoods together, because, for example, I know there's an Aldwin Lane Association, and I know there is a Trianon Association. So they're not, they're not together, divided up. I mean, maybe we have to speak to our legislative representatives when they redistrict to solve this problem, because I think it's an ongoing problem. It's gotten worse over the years.
The good news is we used to have 3 legislators. We're down to 2. Maybe next time we'll have 1 and we won't have a problem.
Bill, I really don't know. I mean, that is my main thing. We're keeping neighborhoods together. The students, I understand. I would also like to see some way of being able to cull the student on the lists, because, for example, the South Campus, I don't care which ward it's in now, that's a freshman dorm. So they register freshman year. Second year, they're over probably in the 2nd or 3rd ward, and the names still remain unless they re-register.
If I could interrupt you.
Yeah.
You're talking about voter registration.
Yeah.
This is all based on
Okay, on
population.
population.
So this is a census worker going into the dorm,
And
counting
counting the
beds,
dorms.
and that's what
Okay.
it's based on.
Okay.
And that will not change. It doesn't
All right.
matter whether they show up to vote or not at this point.
Okay.
But if you want to, you could put that list together every year, send it to Board of Elections, and say these people have all moved because they're not freshmen.
Yes,
And that's their job over there.
We know that's their job, yes. That's probably a good job for the person, representing the area at that time.
Some
Who knows? We'll wait and see.
Some
What?
of your commissioners already do that.
What?
Once or twice a year, send a list of people that have died or moved away to the Board of Elections, and that helps them with their chore of
Yes,
updating the
because
voter list.
it can get very unwieldy, and I understand of the population problem. I mean, the
Census problem.
it's not a problem, but how you are working with it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment? Hello,
Good
Shiwen.
evening. Shiwen Law from Hills of Bryn Mawr in the 4th Ward, 1st Precinct. And looking at option 5C, I have a concern. Well, my kids went to Ithan School. We vote at the Ithan Elementary School. And under 5C, all of that now is placed in the 5th Ward. And I'm kind of concerned. If you look at the community of interest, a lot of the community of interest is built around the school and the parents' activities around the sports activities and connected with the children who attend the school. And so now, the line, it looks like it runs up.
Put it up here, so
Up to,
Shiwen, could I head your question off? One of the things that I know is going to happen, because when the Election Bureau looks at this, the voter registration is going to be such with, the 5th Ward is going to end up with 3 precincts. The logical thing to do would be to make the Hills of Bryn Mawr and Ithan Mills a new precinct unto itself, and still have it vote at the elementary school.
The elementary school is
That-
still going to be in your precinct, because it's also being moved.
well, it's going to be moved into the 5th.
Yes,
So
right,
where
along with you.
Where will be the people who are in 4-1 be voting then?
Well, I think we hit that before you came in.
Okay, I'm sorry. I
The
missed
idea
that.
was, we don't necessarily have to move that voting place for 4-1.
They could both vote there if there was room.
No, I mean,
Okay.
we're fairly unique in that aspect. Other places I've lived have multiple polling places in the same room, multiple wards, multiple precincts.
Yeah, no, I've seen that.
One of the things we
I've
have to
seen that. I'm
consider
just
is the ideal
curious.
precinct has 700 voters. So we qualify to have 3 precincts in each ward of Radnor. We could decide to do that. That's something we have to do. Once we pass this, then we have to come up with recommended precincts to the county. Rather than have them draw them, we should come up with a recommendation for precincts and polling places for the county, rather than just going out and doing it on their own. So we could go to 3 precincts. We've talked about it for years. You know, I like having a big precinct because then all the voters come here and I don't have an extra precinct to cover. But, you know, we're definitely qualified for 3 precincts.
Well, that's the ideal, but there's actually a statutory max.
Now, I understand
Yeah,
that.
and we're going to go over that in 5, because 5-1's so small.
I mean, I have seen, you know, schools where there are multiple precincts voting at the same, but this Ithan Elementary gym doesn't really have, it just has enough space for 3 polls. I don't really think you could fit more, you know, polling booths in there to accommodate other.
It's a problem we'll have to deal with.
They might have another location.
There might be another location.
Yeah, well, I think you need to consider that. Okay,
Oh, yeah,
thanks.
we are, absolutely.
Thank you, Shiva. And anybody else who'd like to make comment? Did we answer all your questions?
Thank you for your discussion this evening, and I would just like to make a comment, and I will take my league pin and just hide it. And as an individual, I would like to say that I think historically, when we look at redistricting throughout the nation, there's always been an issue of providing districts that might protect incumbents. And I think that that is not one of the parameters under which you're operating. And I think there has been some discussion about where incumbents live. And I think as we look across the nation, it's important to have competitive elections, regardless of what the districts may be, because I think that gives voters a better voice. So I think as you look at redistricting, we need to consider, and I think as you've tried to analyze the situation in terms of not being partisan, I think the idea of having competitive elections makes for good government. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. Anyone else who'd like to comment?
I'd like to move the introduction of...
Wait, I have one more thing.
Well, I can introduce it, then you can talk. I'd like to move the introduction of ordinance 2014-09.
Second.
You got the floor.
I'd like to amend that just to change the Montrose Avenue condos.
42 voters in that tract.
Keep them in the 7th Ward as they are now.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All right, did you have a comment? Rick?
Yeah, I have to go back down. Also, Ken, can I get the overhead here? I'm going to have to toggle between the two, I guess. Is that Ken? Jim? I said Ken, sorry.
Jim, if you can get the overhead.
Let's start at the very beginning. We'll go to A and then to B.
And can we zoom in?
Yeah,
Zoom,
upside
that's
down.
it, keep going. There we go. All right. That's good. Everybody, I think, knows this particular drawing here. This is the proposed Villanova. This is the CICD and the dormitories. This is Lancaster Avenue through here, and Pike Field, South Campus, and here's Alden Triangle, and the railroad tracks right through here. And Campus Corner, which I get a lot of pizza from, which is pretty good. And what I want to point out here is this curved area, and this piece right here. Here's Ithan Avenue. And then here's the Eternal Road here. I don't know what it's called. It crosses over. This is that's the parking, and this is the new Center for Performing Arts. And then here's the dorm. And it's right here along the curve.
Proposed. These are all proposed. They're not built.
Well, we have conditional use. All right, now could we switch back there, Jim, to the computer?
Point of order on relevance.
Let him go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's relevant because it's,
Let him go.
you got to understand, because I think that people don't understand what they're talking about, that piece is right there in the 6th ward, John.
What?
I mean, in the 7th ward, the current 7th ward, right there. See
No,
where that 0 is right there?
That's the performing arts and the garage.
No, that's,
Yes,
that,
yes.
no, that is going to pick up all the dorms. It will, unless this is drawn
I
incorrectly.
guess it's half of it, yeah.
Well,
Okay, but
hang
in
on.
any case, it's totally irrelevant. Those
Yeah.
aren't the census numbers now, and we are working with the census
Yeah, he's
numbers
right,
now.
John. You get
Yeah.
some of that.
It'll all be in there.
And in the 2020 census, when those numbers are in, we will
Rich.
adjust accordingly.
Nonetheless,
But wait, I just want to clarify. Rich, in the middle of that is Eichen Avenue,
Yeah.
right?
no.
No?
Eichen Avenue is this piece right here. Here's Eichen Avenue right there.
Yeah. So, yeah, you pick up half the parking lot, half the.
No, you pick up
Yeah.
the entire thing, the entire dorm.
But, no, and that's fine. What no commissioner wants is get the entire dorm, because it's 1,200 new potential.
It's going to be the entire dorm, John.
No,
Yeah, I guarantee you. It's right here.
It looks like it, John. Rich. It's
Once the-
2019, and we'll do another.
Okay.
we'll do it
Once
again in
those
2019.
dorms are built, we're going to have
It's
to
okay.
redistrict again.
That's okay.
Okay,
yeah.
well, thanks for making that point. We have a motion and a second on the floor.
We have amendment first to vote on?
So just the details of that, John Nagel, from an administrative perspective, that's an easy change to make, and it's just
Well,
pushing a line over, a small line in a
Yeah,
small.
if
Could you show us, John, what your amendment is?
I'll show you.
It's actually a development. It's actually just a development.
And
It's
the
not even
logic is just to further equalize the population.
No,
See
cuts
the
a development.
42
It's
where
both
the arrow's
equalize the
pointing?
population
Yeah.
One ward, half.
and also,
Is part of a condo complex. It's about a third of a condo complex. The rest of that condo complex is in that huge block that's 926. So, again, the goal for me was to make 5-1 as big as possible, but it is splitting a neighborhood, so I had conflicting goals.
There's probably 50 condos in there, 25 would have went to the 5th ward, 25 would have stayed in the 7th. Now, all 50 will stay in the 7th.
So we'll push
and it's
them
just,
back.
it's
We'll
so
just
much
leave it
easier
as
for
it
the
is
people
today,
that
so-
live there, they
And it
continue to
is
go
an
where they go
easy
now.
change, we'll just get Amanda to change the technical language.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote on the motion as amended by Commissioner Fisher.
Can we vote on the amendment?
Vote on the amendment,
Vote on the
please.
amendment first.
And then I have another amendment, if depending on how this goes.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote on the motion that was, the amendment that was moved by John Fisher and seconded by, I don't remember,
John
John Nagel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment passes 7-0. Did you want to make another move for another amendment?
I do have another amendment, and I'll just change it, show the picture so we can see it. Sorry, I apologize to the crowd walking back and forth like this. I guess we could ask Township Manager to help me out here if you want.
He says you're on your own.
Yeah, apparently, apparently. All right. And this is to address my concern on the, I would move that we amend this to put this portion of the census back into the first ward.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, you do realize that that makes the first ward swell with over
Yeah,
2,000
and I'll take
students.
834 voters from,
All right, let's vote. Just
So-
vote.
Okay, all right, I'm going to go ahead and call that vote. That's been, the motion that has, to amend to include the 834, 9, and 42. All those in
And
favor?
again, that's as much to adhere to the district and Pennsylvania district voting lines as, and to
Yeah,
avoid
we
that.
got it.
Hold on,
Consistency.
Don, did you have a comment on that?
on the second part of that?
Well, the motion.
Well, I've already stated what I would do is I would sort of rotate the whole thing around and pick up the voters again that in the existing neighborhoods of the 6th ward. and that's not what this.
But that doesn't eliminate the dorm problem.
Well, I think the dorm problem you can.
Well, that's the,
deal with.
that's not the motion.
Okay, that's not the motion.
And-
So I'm not going to make a motion that I know there isn't 4 votes to support.
Okay, and Rich, what, with the addition of the 834, 9, and 42, I think you said, what is the, do you know what the total voter count is then for that ward?
Well, no, but he would.
No.
He would go from 1,600 down to under 1,000, and Jim would go from 1,200 up to, so we'd have to do it all over because it equalized. That's equalizing the students.
Well, yeah, we'd have to do probably
The
some
only way
more
we can equalize
changes.
the students is the way we did it.
Right, I guess it's just it is very much piecemeal here with the way we're doing this, because it's like every change, we're going to need to.
Well, I don't want to support it unless I understand the balance of population by ward, and it sounds like you're throwing it off quite a bit.
Yes, and if this passes, then I don't see that this could be introduced tonight, correct? Because we would have to go
Right,
back to,
right.
correct? So, and if this passes, then to me, the logical thing, I mean, I recognize this is like, I don't know if a pinwheel is that it's spinning. And I think it should spin a little bit. I think it should, some of those voters, I mean, it's essentially, Jim, to your point about losing, a significant part of your precinct, well, the first ward was the one that had the most voters to lose. And the second ward, I believe, or the sixth ward had either the most to gain or was in among the ones that had to gain the most voters. And we gained those voters by shedding more than 50%. And you shed voters by gaining a sizable number, maybe 25% of the sixth ward. So what Rich's, if Rich's amendment is successful, it's going to sort of rotate a little bit, and then it's going to, I would then follow up with a motion to restore voters from the sixth ward that have been taken out of the sixth ward.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call a vote. All those in favor of the motion, Rich's motion to amend, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion fails by a vote of 2 to 5. Now we will vote on the underlying,
Introduction.
the introduction as amended.
May I ask a question? Bill, did your motion propose introduction of the ordinance or just of the maps?
No, introduction to the ordinance.
Okay, I had 2 little things I'd like to ask Peter about. I sent these to John Rice earlier in the week. In the ordinance, section 2.
Jim, I looked at your comments, and
Mike?
it's on. They're not substantive, so they don't change. They can still be made without affecting the introduction, is my point. Would you agree with that? No, I'm not saying don't make them. I'm just clarifying that for everybody.
Commissioner, would you like me to address them? John did send me your email, and I did look at them. In regards, okay.
Let me tell people what, in section 2, it says the realigned proposed population for each of the 7 wards contains an overall deviation of 5.93% from the norm and consists of the following. Just put that in explanation in the context here. What is the norm?
The norm is the median of number of voters across the 7 wards. So I don't know what that number is.
It's 4,504.
Okay. And
per
so
ward.
then the deviation is from that median number. And so the greatest deviation is 5.93% from that median number.
That would be the spread, because some are up 3, down, I was down 3, and the highest up was 3.
Okay, so that's from that's the spread from the lowest to the highest?
Actually, the spread should be 6, according to my calcs, but.
Done with the Excel, but
And we're permitted to have 10% deviation.
Right.
But
Right,
my-
that's what yes.
Mine
So-
will be adjusted down and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so here's the spread. The highest, the ward furthest over the median is Ward 2, and that's a 2.78. The ward furthest under the median is Ward 7, which is 3.11. you add those two together and you get 589. So,
Right, well,
And that's going to be adjusted based on that
which is
second
then
amendment.
adjusted because Ward 7 is gaining a few people.
Yeah, so just clarity, the 5th ward will be at 4486, and the 7th ward will be at 4429, with the shift in 42.
In the ordinance itself.
Yeah, Jim, we can have a deviation 10%. So we're
Yeah,
fine.
no, that's not my point. My point is just to explain to somebody that's not familiar with the whole process and the way this works is something other than
I
the
think-
words "the norm." Put something in there like the number of voters across the 7 wards.
Yeah, but
That's-
Jim,
that's
no
all.
one,
I mean, if the commissioners, if you want us to add that to the ordinance, that's a simple fix. The other option is to explain it when the ordinance comes up for, possible adoption. There can be an explanation of what that number means if people have
Right.
questions. It's up to you. We certainly can put an explanation in. It's no big deal.
Can we just add the text from the norm, and in parentheses, you would put the number of 4504, 4,000?
Yeah, I hate to, but I would just cross out norm and write average.
Oh,
Yeah, but it's not average, it's median.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Well, if it's median, then it should say
Should say
median.
median.
Yeah.
But I'll
I
defer to
mean,
you.
that's
I would
very
think it should be
unsubstantive,
average.
so I think we can just go ahead and
Okay.
make that
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
if you make the change now,
No,
Yeah.
we'll make the change before it's advertised.
Okay,
What's
so-
advertised is what
do we need a
matters.
motion? Well,
Did you
Jim,
have
what else
another change?
Just
Suggested
curious, in the third whereas, in the fourth line, it says option 5C will most sufficiently meet the requirements. Is that the right,
That is the correct term, yes.
not efficiently?
Not efficient, I believe, yes,
Okay.
sufficient.
Okay,
Wait, may I ask a question, Madam President? Why did we not try to do a caucus on this whole thing in the public as suggested by Mr. Heldering? I mean, why wouldn't this be a caucus night and talk about this and then get input and then bring it up subsequent to this for introduction?
well, we're getting input now. We've had input and we've had a
We did
public
have a caucus
discussion.
night on this, didn't we?
We did,
Wasn't
actually,
this
yes.
a month ago,
Yes,
about a month
you're
and a
right.
half ago? We
I
had
wasn't
this
here,
on the
but
agenda for.
yes, we had a public meeting when it,
Right.
okay.
Did I miss that meeting?
The motion has been on the floor and it's been seconded. This is for the introduction of the ordinance as amended. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
And it passes by a vote of 5-2.
How are we going to put out the other maps? We're going to put them on the website, or what are we going to do?
Yeah, we'll put them on the website.
Okay, all right.
Put all the maps on the website, and I'll also talk to Amanda tomorrow and get the tables and the legal descriptions changed to delete the 42, and I'll make sure the numbers are all correct.
And on the ordinance.
On the ordinance.
'Cause it
And so
has the-
what's the goal with putting the other maps on the website?
People wanted to see them.
People want to see, they want to understand what happened.
But we just introduced this. This is
It hasn't been
You're right,
adopted.
we
If-
just
They can still
introduced it.
speak when we have adoption.
Well, we
don't-
have a hearing,
No.
and then
Well, it's
we'll
an
have a
ordinance.
hearing, and
We'll
The
have a
night we
second,
adopt
we'll
it.
have a second
We'll
vote.
have a meeting, and you can speak when we voted. I mean, we just had a hearing now.
Well,
Yeah, there's.
well, no, you're required to have the hearing.
We're adopting an
after
ordinance, so just
introduction.
like any other
Right.
ordinance, we have to advertise it, has to be
Yeah.
posted,
Right.
and we will then, have a hearing on the adoption of the ordinance.
And you
Once
can
the
pass it-
ordinance,
yes.
if the ordinance is adopted, it's then sent to the Board of Elections.
But you can pass it the same night as the hearing.
Yes,
Yes.
well, that's the purpose of the hearing,
Yeah.
is to
Yeah.
consider the adoption of the ordinance.
But because of the requirement to publish it,
Yeah.
we won't be able to have it in this coming Monday. It'll be-
Right, no, it'll wait. Okay, are there any reports from library, finance, community development, public works, public safety, parks and rec, or public health?
These truck zoos this weekend, I forget whether it's a...
Truck Zoo, yes, from 2
Which is a big
to
blast,
5.
which is, even if you don't have kids that you're taking there, you need to know that South Wayne's blocked off because of it. So it's important that you understand that.
Okay, any old business? Any new business? Any more public participation? Would someone like to move to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned.